As the others left the chamber, the science officer remained. "You know, they will want to study this human now," he said quietly. "She has been exposed to our presence. She may be monitored." Zara felt a chill at his words. She had not considered this consequence. In her desire for contact, she may have placed Beth in danger. "I request permission to warn her," she said. The science officer looked troubled. Such contact would be against the commanders. Explicit orders. Zara met his gaze. "We claim to study humans ethically, yet we would leave one ignorant of potential danger. Where is the ethics in that?" He considered this argument, then nodded slightly. "I will be conducting atmospheric readings near the human settlement tomorrow. My shuttle will require a pilot." He stood. "To leave, I suggest you review the flight protocols tonight. You seem to have a troubling tendency to misinterpret instructions." Zara understood his meaning and felt grateful for this small alliance. The next day, she would find a way to warn Beth, even if it meant further disciplinary action for herself. Some principles transcended protocol even for her dutiful species, as their ship hummed quietly in its hiding place deep within the forest. Zara reviewed everything she had learned about humans. In her years of observation, they were contradictory beings capable of both remarkable compassion and terrible violence. They fought among themselves over resources and ideas, yet also cooperated to achieve great things. They were dangerous. Yes, but also filled with potential. Her unauthorized contact had shown her something important, that connections could form across the vast differences between their kinds. That understanding was possible. Even if difficult, this knowledge felt worth whatever punishment might come. The morning sky glowed orange as Beth tended her garden. She had barely slept since her encounter with Zara. The alien woman had vanished into the forest, leaving Beth with questions that kept her mind racing throughout the night. She glanced occasionally toward the trees, wondering if hidden eyes still watched her. The crystal from Zara's world sat on her windowsill, catching light and throwing blue patterns across her kitchen. Walbeth jumped at the sound of vehicles approaching her remote cabin. Dust rose from the dirt road as 3 black SUVs pulled up. Men in dark suits emerged from the vehicles. One approached her while others began setting up equipment around her property. "Ma'am, Agent Wilson with the Federal Scientific Investigation Unit." He showed her an identification card that Beth barely glanced at. "We're conducting a routine investigation following reports of unusual atmospheric disturbances in this area." Beth kept her expression neutral, continuing to work the soil around her tomato plants. "Unusual disturbances," she repeated. "Yes, Mom, possibly meteorological in nature." He studied her face. "Have you noticed anything? Strange recently, lights in the sky, unusual sounds or objects?" Beth thought of the blue woman standing at her garden's edge, of the crystal glowing on her windowsill visible. If the agent just turned his head? No, she said nothing unusual. The agent didn't seem convinced. "Several residents reported seeing lights in the forest 2 nights ago, and your property is closest to where these phenomena were observed." "Just enjoying my quiet life here, Agent Wilson," Beth said, standing and wiping her hands on her jeans. "I don't pay much attention to the sky unless it's going to rain on my vegetables." He smiled, but his eyes remained suspicious. "We'll be setting up some monitoring equipment in the area." He gestured to where other agents were already placing devices. "At the edges of her property, standard procedure, you understand, nothing to worry about." Beth nodded, trying to appear unconcerned, though her heart raced. These men were looking for Zara or others like her. They would be watching her now, too. Waiting to see if the aliens returned. "How long will you be here?" she asked. "Just a few days, unless we detect something of interest," the agent replied. Then he pointed to her cabin. "Mind if we take a look inside? Standard procedure." Beth hesitated, then nodded, knowing refusal would only increase their suspicions. She led the agent into her small home, trying to appear casual as they passed the windowsill where the crystal sat. But it was no longer there. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for where it might have fallen. "Something wrong?" the agent asked, noting her confusion. "No," Beth said quickly, "just realized I left some bread in the oven." She moved to the kitchen, giving herself a moment to think. Where could the crystal have gone? She hadn't moved. The agent walked slowly around her living area, examining bookshelves and tables, his gaze lingering on photographs and personal items. "You live alone out here, by choice?" Beth replied. "It's peaceful. I prefer plants to people most days after the inspection. The agent rejoined his team outside. Beth watched from her porch as they established what looked like a perimeter around her property, disguised as scientific equipment, but clearly surveillance tools. She wondered how she would warn Zara if she returned. The alien woman would be walking into a trapace. Twilight approached. The agents departed, leaving only their equipment behind. Beth checked her cabin carefully for hidden cameras or listening devices. Finding 2 small devices, one in her living room and another in the kitchen, she left them in place, knowing that removing them would alert the agents instead. She wrote on a notepad, "They are watching me, be careful," then left it on her kitchen table in plain view, hoping Zara might see it if she returned that night. Beth lay awake staring at her ceiling, wondering what would happen next. Her encounter with Zara had been brief, but profound. The existence of intelligent life beyond Earth was no longer a philosophical question, but a blue-skinned reality, one that had chosen her garden as first contact. She felt both honored and terrified by the responsibility. A soft tapping at her window startled her. She rose carefully, avoiding the sightlines of the camera in her living room, and peeked through the curtains. The science officer from Zara's ship stood outside. He gestured for her to join him. Beth hesitated, then slipped out her back door away from the surveillance equipment. The alien was taller than Zara, with darker, blue skin that almost appeared purple in the moonlight. "Zara sends warning," he said in halting English, his voice deeper than Zara's. "Humans search for us, for you now, danger." "They were here today," Beth whispered. "Placing surveillance equipment. They suspect something." The science officer nodded. "We have detected their technology, primitive but functional." He handed her a small device like a watch place on wrist. "It will shield you from their monitoring equipment." Beth examined the device before slipping it on her wrist. "What about Zara? Is she okay?" "She is restricted to ship punishment for contact," the alien explained, "but concerned for your safety. Sent me with warning, and this." He held out his hand. The crystal now mounted in what appeared to be a metallic frame. "My crystal," Beth said, reaching for it, but stopped when she noticed it was different now. "Modified, it will alert you to our presence and to danger," the science officer explained. "Useful if you need to flee." Beth accepted the modified crystal. "Why are you helping me? Zara believes you are different, worthy of trust." He studied her with large silver eyes. "I am curious if she is correct. Humans have reputation as violent, unpredictable species." Beth smiled slightly. "Well, individuals are often different from their species' reputation. I could say the same about secretive aliens who spy on us from the forest." The science officer made a sound that might have been laughter. "Surprising, Beth. You speak directly. I see why Zara finds you interesting." He grew serious again. "Danger increases our mission may end soon. Decision comes from homeworld about Earth." "What kind of decision?" Beth asked. "Whether to make official contact or leave Earth alone." "Perhaps for centuries." The implications of his words settled heavily on Beth. "So my interaction with Zara could affect your people's decision about all of humanity." He nodded. "One small moment can change course of history." Beth thought about this responsibility for a moment, then asked, "Why did Zara choose me?" The science officer tilted his head in consideration. "She says you tend living things with care. Observe before acting. Speak truth. These are valued traits among our kind." Voices and lights suddenly appeared at the front of the cabin. The agents, returning. The science officer tensed. "I must leave," but touched her shoulder briefly. "Remember, the device will shield and warn you. Trust no humans in dark clothing." He disappeared into the trees with startling speed as Beth hurried back inside, slipping through her door. Just as agents rounded the corner of her cabin, she quickly got into bed, pretending to be asleep. When a flashlight beam crossed her window the next morning, Agent Wilson returned, this time with more men. They surrounded her cabin. As she stepped onto her porch, "Our equipment detected an anomaly last night," he said, his friendly pretense gone. "Did you have a visitor?" Beth feigned confusion. "I slept through the night," she said. Noticing how their detection equipment seemed to be malfunctioning, officers checked and rechecked settings with frustrated expressions. "Was it another meteor?" Wilson studied her face. "You seem very calm for someone whose property is surrounded by federal agents. Most people would be nervous if done." "Nothing wrong," Beth replied. I have no reason to be nervous, though I am curious why the government is so interested in meteors. An agent approached Wilson, whispering something that made his expression darken. She turned off the cameras, he said to Beth, his voice cold. You disabled federal surveillance equipment. Zara was especially interested in one human female, a woman named Beth who lived alone at the edge of the settlement. Beth spent her days tending to plants in what Zara had learned was called a garden. The human seemed peaceful and kind. Unlike some of the others who carried weapons and spoke loudly, Zara felt drawn to this quiet woman, though she could not explain why. The scout mission had strict rules, no interaction with the natives, only observation from a distance. But Zara found herself moving closer to Beth's dwelling each day. Today she was hidden just beyond the tree line. Watching as Beth harvested red fruits from vines, she had an urge to step out to reveal herself. This feeling troubled her, as she had always been a dutiful scout. Zara touched the communication device on her wrist, considering whether to report these strange feelings to her commander. But she hesitated. Her people valued logical thinking and would see her curiosity about one specific human as irrational, perhaps even dangerous. She decided to keep these thoughts to herself for now. As dusk approached, Beth finished her work and went inside her dwelling. Zara remained hidden. Considering her options, she knew her team would relocate soon to observe another human settlement. Perhaps she could leave something for Beth, a small token to show she had been watched. Not as a threat, but with admiration. Such contact was forbidden. But Zara felt increasingly rebellious. That night, under the cover of darkness, Zara approached Beth's dwelling. She carried a small crystal from her world that glowed with a soft blue light. She placed it carefully on the wooden structure humans called a porch, then quickly retreated to the safety of the trees, her heart beating rapidly at this violation of protocol. She told herself it was part of the research, a test to see how humans react to unknown objects. The next morning, Zara returned to her observation post earlier than usual, eager to see Beth's reaction. Beth emerged from her dwelling and immediately noticed the glowing crystal. She approached it cautiously, then picked it up with gentle hands, examining it in the morning light. Zara watched as expressions of confusion, wonder, and delight crossed Beth's face. The human did not appear frightened, only curious. She carried the crystal inside rather than discarding it. For 3 more days, Zara watched as Beth brought the crystal out each morning, studying it in different lights. She seemed to treasure the object, placing it carefully on a small table near her garden. This unexpected reaction fascinated Zara. Her people had assumed humans would respond with fear or aggression to anything unknown. Her commanders needed to know that at least some humans could react with peaceful curiosity. Zara decided to take a bold step. She would reveal herself to Beth. Not full contact, but enough to gauge a more direct reaction. She prepared carefully, selecting the least threatening appearance settings for her adaptive suit, allowing her blue skin to show but minimizing the more alarming features of her species. She would approach at dusk when fewer humans would be about to witness the encounter. When evening came, Zara moved silently toward Beth's garden. The human was kneeling among her plants, unaware of the visitor approaching from the forest. Zara deliberately stepped on a twig, creating a small sound. Beth looked up, her eyes widening as she saw the blue-skinned figure at the edge of her property. Beth stood, slowly wiping soil from her hands, her expression cautious but not terrified. "You left the crystal, didn't you?" she said, her voice surprisingly steady. Zara was startled that Beth had made the connection so quickly. She nodded, not yet trusting herself to speak the human language she had been learning. Beth took a small step forward. "Are you alone?" she asked. Zara nodded again. "Do you mean any harm?" Beth continued. Zara shook her head, then found her voice no harm. She managed in careful English study, only Beth's posture relaxed slightly, though she remained alert. "You've been watching us?" "Yes," Zara admitted. "Your world interesting? Your garden peaceful?" A small smile appeared on Beth's face. "Well, this is unexpected. I always believed we weren't alone, but I never thought I'd be gardening when I found out." Zara tilted her head, confused by the human's calm demeanor. Most reaction scenarios had predicted screaming or running or attacking you. Not afraid, Beth considered this and surprised. Certainly, maybe even a little. Scared but not terrified, should I? Zara shook her head quickly. "No harm," she repeated. "I am scientist observer." Beth gestured to the crystal. It's beautiful. What is it? Gift from my world. Zara explained, light from our crystals. The conversation continued. As darkness fell, Beth asking questions, Zara answering as best she could in her limited English. Neither noticed the small drone hovering above the trees recording their interaction, nor did they see the figures moving through the forest toward them. Suddenly, lights burst from the trees surrounding them. Zara's communication device beeped urgently with a warning signal. Humans with weapons were approaching. She had been discovered not just by Beth but by others, less welcoming. Run, Beth whispered, urgently seeing the lights too. They'll take you and study you. I've heard stories, Zara hesitated. Conflicted, she had broken protocol, endangered her mission. Perhaps even her team. But Beth was trying to help her, showing concern for a stranger, an alien. The lights grew closer. Voices called out commands. Zara made her decision with swift movements. She activated her camouflage suit, its technology rendering her nearly invisible against the forest background. Beth gasped as Zara seemed to disappear, before her eyesmen in uniform burst into the garden surrounding Beth, demanding to know where the alien had gone. Beth feigned confusion, claiming she had seen strange lights, but nothing more. Zara watched from just meters away, her heart racing as Beth protected her without hesitation. The men searched the area but found nothing more than unusual footprints. They questioned Beth intensely, but she maintained her story of seeing only lights in the sky, possibly a meteor. She suggested after an hour of searching, the men left, warning Beth to report immediately if she saw anything unusual again. When they were truly alone, Zara deactivated her camouflage, appearing beside Beth, who jumped slightly but did not cry out. You protected me, Beth, whispered Zara. Considered the question. I do not know, she admitted truthfully, except that you showed no fear. You saw difference but not threat. Beth nodded thoughtfully. What happens now? I must return to my team, Zara said. Warn them humans with weapons know of us. Our mission may end. Will you come back? Beth asked. Zara knew she should say no, that further contact was too dangerous. But something in Beth's expression made her hesitate. I will try, she said finally. If safe, Beth smiled, then reached out slowly, telegraphing her movement before gently touching Zara's arm. The sensation was strange for both of them. First contact in the truest sense. Take the crystal with you, Beth said. It might be dangerous for me to keep it. Now Zara shook her head. It was gift, it is yours now, hidden. They will not know what it is. With reluctance, Zara activated her locator device. Her team would find her soon and extract her from this now compromised location. I must go, she said. Many questions will come for me. Punishment, perhaps. Beth looked troubled. I never meant to cause you problems. You did not, Zara assured her. I chose this, my decision. She hesitated, then added, Your kind worth knowing, Beth. Not all humans same. You show this important knowledge. Distant voices reached them. Zara's team approaching to extract her. She stepped back toward the forest. Goodbye, Beth, she said. Goodbye, Zara. Beth replied, using her name for the first time. I hope your people decide we're worth talking to. Zara disappeared into the darkness. But her mind was filled with new questions and possibilities. Her report would be complicated, her actions difficult to explain, but she had learned something vital about humans, something her people needed to understand, that within their diversity lay individuals capable of seeing beyond difference, capable of wonder instead of fear. Back at the scout ship, Zara's commander was furious. Her actions had endangered the entire mission. Decades of careful observation at risk because of one scout's curiosity. What were you thinking? The commander demanded as the team gathered in the ship's conference chamber. I was collecting valuable data on human reactions. Zara argued. The protocols are flawed. We cannot truly understand them without some limited interaction. The science officer interrupted, more curious than angry. What did you learn from this interaction that justifies the risk? Zara organized her thoughts carefully, knowing her future, and possibly the future relationship between their worlds depended on her answer. This human showed curiosity, not fear. Welcome, not rejection. She valued truth over ignorance. She protected an unknown being from her own kind at risk to herself. These traits suggest humans have potential beyond our current assessment, the commander frowned. These observations come from one human. You cannot generalize an entire species from a single example. That is precisely my point, Zara countered. We have been generalizing based on their most aggressive representatives, their military, their power structures, but we have ignored the diversity within their population. Without understanding this diversity, our assessment is incomplete. The debate continued for hours. The team divided on whether Zara's unauthorized contact was valuable research or dangerous protocol violation. Finally, the commander reached a decision. Zara would be removed from field observation, assigned instead to data analysis on the ship. Her interaction would be studied but not repeated. Beth maintained her innocent expression. I did no such thing. Maybe your equipment is faulty. Wilson stepped closer, invading her personal space. We know something or someone was here last night, and we know you're lying. I suggest you start cooperating before your situation worsens. Beth felt fear rise in her chest, but the crystal beneath her shirt grew warm against her skin. Somehow comforting him, a Gardner Agent Wilson, she said, keeping her voice steady. I live alone. I grow vegetables and flowers. The most exciting thing that happens here is when the deer eat my lettuce. Whatever you're looking for, it's not here. For 3 days, the agents maintained their presence, setting up a command center in a large tent at the edge of her property. Beth was effectively under house arrest, though they called it protective custody. She wondered what Zara and her people would think of this human behavior, confirming their worst suspicions perhaps. On the 4th morning, Beth woke to find the crystal glowing brightly, pulsing with blue light. She quickly hid it under her pillow as an agent knocked on her door. Mom, you need to come with us immediately. Outside, Beth saw new vehicles arriving, larger military trucks, soldiers with more serious weapons. Replacing the scientific team, Agent Wilson approached her. We have detection of multiple anomalies in the forest, he said. We believe there may be an imminent threat. You need to be moved to a secure location. Beth understood the situation was escalating. Zara's people must be preparing to leave, or perhaps worse, the military was preparing to confront them. Either way, she needed to act. The crystal continued to pulse against her skin, hidden under her clothing. Somehow, she knew it was a warning. As soldiers prepared to escort her to a vehicle, Beth made a decision, one that would change everything. I need to use the bathroom before we go, she said. The female agent assigned to watch her nodded, following Beth to her cabin bathroom. Beth closed the door and immediately climbed through the small window, dropping into the bushes behind her home. The crystal now glowing steadily, pulling her toward the forest. She ran, knowing alarms would sound behind her at any moment. Beth pushed through underbrush, following the crystal's guidance deeper into the trees than she had ever ventured. Suddenly, the air before her shimmered and Zara appeared, her expression worried. You escaped, she said. The soldiers are coming. Beth gasped. They know you're here. Zara nodded. Sadly, we are preparing to leave Earth. Our mission ends poorly. Shouts echoed behind them as soldiers began searching the forest. Beth grabbed Zara's arm. There's no time. Zara hesitated, then made a decision. I will take you to our ship. She activated her communication device, speaking rapidly in her own language. Moments later, the air around them shimmered, and Beth felt a strange sensation, like floating then falling. They appeared inside a curved metallic corridor, Zara steadying Beth as she stumbled. Disoriented from the teleportation, you brought a human here, Zara's commander shouted, approaching them with what appeared to be a weapon. This is unacceptable. Our position is compromised, Zara argued. This human helped me evaded capture to warn us. She deserves protection, not threats. The commander and Zara argued intensely in their language, while Beth stood shocked by her surroundings. The ship hummed with energy. Lights pulsed along curved walls, and through the nearest viewport she could see Earth blue and green hanging in blackness. The sight brought tears to her eyes. The science officer entered the chamber, bringing silence to the argument. He studied Beth, then addressed the commander. The human surveillance grid has activated targeting systems. They have located our position. His voice was grim. Attack likely. All eyes turned to Beth, who felt the weight of suspicion. She shook her head. I didn't lead them here. I ran from them. The science officer activated a screen showing thermal imagery of soldiers surrounding the area where the ship was hidden. They are preparing weapons, he confirmed. The commander made a rapid decision. We launch now all personnel to departure stations. She glared at Zara. Your human comes with us. We cannot risk leaving her with knowledge of our existence. She will be studied, then relocated to a suitable colony. Zara translated for Beth, who felt panic rise at the thought of leaving Earth forever. Her garden, her home. Everything she knew. I can't, she protested. I belong here. But the decision was made as the ship hummed louder. Beth felt the floor vibrate beneath her feet through the viewport. She saw trees falling away as they ascended. She reached for the crystal still around her neck. Its glow now faded. To a soft pulse, Zara touched her shoulder gently. I am sorry, this was not my intention, but you will not be harmed, I promise. Beth looked at the alien woman whose impulsive curiosity had changed both their lives forever. What happens now, she asked. Her voice barely a whisper. Zara led her to a viewport as the ship accelerated, Earth growing smaller behind them. Now we go to the stars, she said, and you will see wonders beyond imagination. Beth watched her planet fade to a blue dot among countless stars and realized her life had become something she could never have imagined. One small connection between different beings had cascaded into consequences neither could have foreseen, as fear gave way to wonder. She placed her hand against the cool viewport. Goodbye, she whispered to the shrinking Earth, not knowing if she would ever see home again. Days passed aboard the alien vessel as Beth struggled to adjust. To her new reality, the ship was vast, with curving corridors and rooms that seemed to shift and change. According to need, Zara had been assigned as her guide and protector, a role the blue-skinned woman accepted with a mix of responsibility and guilt. This section is living quarters, Zara explained, leading Beth through an area where the walls glowed with soft light that changed color, slowly pulsing like gentle breaths. You will stay here near my quarters for now. Beth touched the strange material of the wall, surprised to find it warm and slightly yielding like living tissue. How big is this ship? She asked, still trying to comprehend the scale of the vessel that had become her prison or sanctuary. She wasn't sure, which Zara considered. The question, our measurements would mean nothing to you but approximately 20 of your football fields in length, 7 in height, the crew numbers 832 aliens. Beth whispered, and I'm the only human. Zara nodded, her silver hair catching the light. This is unprecedented in our history. No native species has ever been brought aboard an exploratory vessel. Beth tried to process this information. What will happen to me? The Science Council will examine you, study your biology, psychology, cultural knowledge, Zara said, then added quickly, not invasive study, observation, conversation. Learning. Beth felt a chill despite the reassurance. I'm a specimen. Then Zara touched her arm gently, surprising Beth with the warmth of her skin. You are guest under unusual circumstances. Yes, there is interest in learning about humans through you, but you are recognized as sentient being with rights, Beth repeated. Except the right to go home. Zara lowered her eyes. I am sorry for my part in this outcome I did not foresee. Beth sighed. It's not entirely your fault. I chose to warn you. I could have stayed silent, let them capture you instead. She looked around at the alien environment. I just never imagined this would be the consequence. A chime sounded and Zara's communication device lit up with symbols. Beth couldn't understand. The Science Council requests your presence. Zara translated. They wish to begin interviews. The Science Council chamber was circular, with 7 tall aliens seated on elevated platforms, their skin tones ranging from pale blue to deep indigo. They wore silver robes with intricate patterns that seemed to move and shift. As Beth watched 4 males and 3 females, Zara had explained, though the distinctions were subtle to Beth's human eyes. The lead counselor spoke, Zara's translation flowing quietly in Beth's ear. Welcome, human Beth. We regret the circumstances that brought you here, but value the opportunity to learn. Beth stood straight, trying to project confidence despite her fear. I would also like to learn while I'm here, she said, since I don't know how long that will be. The counselors exchanged glances, surprised by her directness. The lead counselor nodded. We will exchange knowledge. Then fair terms, you will answer our questions about humanity and Earth. We will answer yours about us. The questioning began gently with inquiries about Beth's life, her work as a gardener, her family background, her education. Beth answered honestly, seeing no reason to hide such information. Gradually, the questions became more probing about human governments, religions, wars, technologies. She answered as best she could, though often had to admit the limits of her knowledge. I am just one human, she explained after struggling to detail Earth's various political systems. I know about my country and some about others, but I'm not an expert on global politics. I'm a gardener, not a diplomat. The council seemed to find this limitation fascinating. How do humans function without comprehensive knowledge of your own species? One counselor asked. We specialize, Beth explained. Some humans study politics, others science, others grow food or build structures. We each know our area well and rely on others for their expertise. Doesn't your species work that way? The lead counselor leaned forward. Our neural networks allow shared knowledge. All advancements, all discoveries are accessible to all through periodic synchronization. Every adult of our kind carries basic knowledge of all fields. Beth considered this. You mean you can download information directly to your brains? Sarah clarified. It is more complex than your digital downloads, but similar in concept. Specialized knowledge requires training. But basic understanding is universal. No wonder you think we're primitive, Beth murmured. We have to learn everything the slow way. After several hours, the council allowed Beth to ask her own questions. She had prepared carefully during her days on the ship, wanting to understand her situation fully and the beings who now controlled her fate. Where are we going? She asked. First, our home system. The lead counselor answered. Approximately 40 of your light years from Earth. We will arrive in 18 days. Beth felt dizzy at this information, realizing how far from home she truly was. Will I ever return to Earth? She asked, her voice small. The council members exchanged glances. That is undetermined, the lead counselor said. Finally, it depends on many factors, including the official decision regarding Earth contact. What factors? Beth pressed. Another counselor spoke. Our species has strict protocols for contact with developing civilizations. We observe for centuries before deciding. Humanity has been under observation for nearly 300 years. You are approaching a critical phase? 300 years? Beth repeated, stunned. You've been watching us since your early industrial period. Yes, the counselor confirmed. We have witnessed your rapid technological development, your wars, your artistic achievements, your environmental challenges. Zara added quietly. Our historians debate whether to classify humans as remarkably advanced for your age or dangerously aggressive. Some argue both. Beth felt defensive. We are complex, but we are learning. Growing every generation is better than the last. The lead counselor studied her. Your optimism is noted, human Beth. But our records show repeated patterns of destructive behavior. Even as your technology advances, your weapons grow more powerful while your wisdom lags behind. The conversation continued for hours. Beth defending humanity while trying to understand the perspective of beings who had watched human civilization, with the detached interest of scientists studying insects. The realization that Earth's future might hinge partly on the impression she made weighed heavily on her. When finally released from the council chamber, Beth felt exhausted. Zara led her back toward the living quarters, the ship humming around them as it traveled faster than light toward a destination. Beth could barely comprehend. Your answers were impressive, Zara said. Some counselors were surprised by your reasoning capabilities and emotional intelligence. Beth gave a tired laugh. They thought I would be stupid. Not stupid, Zara corrected. Limited. Our preliminary studies suggested humans struggle with long-term planning, empathy for those different from themselves, and controlling aggressive impulses. Beth stopped walking, facing Zara directly. And what do you think now? After knowing Zara's large eyes studied Beth carefully. I think you have shown that humans are more diverse than our models predicted. Some possess qualities we value: wisdom, patience, curiosity, openness to difference. You have these qualities. Is that why you approached me in the garden? Beth asked. Because you saw those qualities. Sarah seemed embarrassed. I approached you because I was curious, fascinated. It was impulsive, not scientific. The consequences have been significant. They walked in silence for a moment before Beth spoke again. "I keep thinking about my garden," she said quietly. The tomatoes were almost ripe, the beans needed harvesting. She looked at her hands, already missing the feel of soil between her fingers. Zara touched her shoulder gently. "Perhaps we can create a growing space for you. There are hydroponic sections where crew grow plant supplements." The offer was kind, but only emphasized how far from home Beth truly was, a simulated garden aboard an alien ship. Light years from Earth. She nodded anyway. "Thank you." Over the following days, Beth established a routine. Zara taught her to use the food synthesizers, the waste recycling systems, the entertainment interfaces which could generate immersive environments based on stored data. Beth was surprised to find thousands of Earth environments, from beaches to mountains to cities, all perfectly recreated from centuries of observation. Zara introduced her to other crew members. Most were scientists curious about the human in their midst. Some were friendly, others clinical in their interest. A few clearly disapproved of her presence, avoiding her entirely. Beth cataloged their reactions, noting the diversity of personalities despite their unified appearance. On the 10th day of their journey, Beth was working in the small, growing space Zara had arranged for her. The ship had provided earth seeds, and she had planted herbs and quick-growing greens. The feel of the modified soil beneath her fingers brought both comfort and sorrow, a reminder of what she had lost. She sensed someone watching her and looked up to find the science officer observing from the entrance. "You adapt well, human Beth," he said. Beth shrugged. "Plants are the same everywhere. They need light, water, nutrients, and care. What they don't need is their gardener." Feeling sorry for herself, he entered the space, examining her small plants with interest. "Our botanists could learn from your methods. We grow for efficiency. You grow with intuition. Both approaches have value," Beth said. "Do you have gardens on your world or only farms?" The science officer considered this distinction. "We have designed growing spaces. Yes, some for beauty, some for food, but nothing wild, nothing unplanned." "That sounds sad," Beth replied. "Every garden on Earth has an element of wildness. Birds, insects, wind all bring unexpected life." The science officer watched her carefully. "Zara's report suggested you might provide unique perspective." "I see." She was correct. He gestured to the crystal Beth still wore around her neck. "It has changed." Beth looked down, surprised to see the blue crystal now contained swirling patterns of green that hadn't been there before. "What does it mean?" she asked. "It responds to your biology, absorbing, adapting," he explained. "Unprecedented. Most non-elix materials remain inert to other species." Beth touched the crystal, feeling its familiar warmth. "What is it made of?" "Living crystal," the science officer said. "From deep oceans of our world, they form symbiotic relationships with our kind, rarely with others." He studied her with new interest. "This suggests compatibility worthy of further study." A chime interrupted them. The science officer checked his communication device. "Urgent council meeting," he said. "Your presence requested." The council chamber seemed tense when Beth entered with Zara and the science officer. The lead counselor gestured for them to approach. "We have received communication from Earth," she announced. Beth's heart raced. "What kind of communication?" "Visual data transmission." The counselor activated a display showing military personnel gathered around equipment, familiar human technology. "They are tracking our trajectory through unusual means we did not anticipate," she explained their message. "Demands return of their citizen. They know." "I'm here," Beth whispered. "How?" The science officer stepped forward. "They detected our communication frequencies during departure, tracked quantum signatures. We believed undetectable by their technology." The lead counselor looked directly at Beth. "Did you carry tracking technology?" Beth shook her head. "I had nothing. They left surveillance at my cabin, but I escaped." "The surveillance devices," Zara suggested. "Perhaps they contain tracking capability more advanced than we realized." One counselor spoke harshly. "The humans show dangerous advancement. Their weapon systems are activating on a global scale. They prepare for conflict." Beth felt cold with fear. "They think you've abducted me. They don't understand. We must respond." The lead counselor said. "The question is how." Beth stepped forward. "Let me communicate with them. I can explain the situation. Tell them I'm not being held against my will. Technically, You are one counselor pointed out. Beth glared at him. The situation is complicated, but war between our worlds would be catastrophic for both sides. Let me speak to them. After intense debate, the council agreed to allow Beth to send a message. The communication chamber was prepared for human compatibility. Beth stood before recording equipment, feeling the weight of diplomacy on her shoulders. People of Earth, she began. My name is Beth Miller. I was living near Forest Ridge, Montana when I encountered visitors from another world. I am now aboard their vessel traveling to their home system. I want to assure you that I am being treated well and am not in danger. She paused, choosing her words carefully. These beings have been observing humanity for centuries, assessing our readiness for contact. The misunderstanding that led to my presence here was not planned by either side, but now presents an opportunity for peaceful communication between our worlds. Beth looked directly into the recording device. I ask that you deactivate weapon systems and approach this situation with openness, rather than fear. I will continue to represent humanity's interests and will return with knowledge that will benefit Earth. The message was sent utilizing technology. Beth couldn't begin to understand. Now they could only wait for a response. The crystal at her throat pulsed with swirling blue and green patterns as if reflecting her anxiety. Earth is 18 light minutes away at our current position. The science officer explained, we should receive response within 40 minutes if they reply immediately. Longest 40 minutes of Beth's life began as she waited with Zara and the council to learn whether her words would prevent conflict or if humanity would choose fear over peace. 39 minutes after Beth's transmission, the communication system chimed with an incoming message. The council's chamber fell silent as the display activated, showing a stern-faced woman in military uniform flanked by officials in suits. This is General Diane Morgan, United Earth Defense Force. She began, her voice crisp with authority. We have received communication from Citizen Beth Miller and acknowledge her statement. However, we require verification that this message was made freely and without coercion. The lead counselor looked to Beth, who stepped forward again. I am speaking freely, General Morgan. She said, these beings have treated me with respect, despite the unusual circumstances. I am learning about their civilization as they learn about ours. The general studied her for a moment. We detect no obvious signs of duress. However, this situation remains unprecedented and concerning. Her expression hardened. Slightly. We propose an exchange. Representatives from Earth will meet with your delegation at neutral coordinates to discuss terms for Citizen Miller's return and future relations. The council members exchanged glances before the lead counselor spoke. We accept this proposal. Coordinates and protocols will follow on this frequency. She gestured and the transmission ended. That went better than expected. Beth said, exhaling slowly. The science officer looked less optimistic. They seek your return, but also intelligence about our capabilities, technology, defenses. They're afraid, Zara said, which is rational when encountering unknown advanced species. Beth turned to the council. And what do you want from this meeting? The lead counselor considered the question. Information. Assessment opportunity to evaluate Earth's readiness for official contact. The circumstances are not ideal, but adaptation is necessary. Preparations for the meeting consumed the next 3 days. The ship changed course, heading toward the designated coordinates in neutral space between Earth and the nearest human colony on Mars. Beth was consulted frequently about human diplomatic protocols and expectations. Her role evolving from specimen to advisor, a transition she found both empowering and surreal. On the morning of the meeting, Beth stood in her quarters examining her appearance in the reflective surface that served as a mirror. She wore a combination of her own clothing and fabric provided by the ship, creating an outfit that felt both familiar and alien, much like her new existence. The crystal at her throat pulsed with swirling patterns of blue and green, its colors more integrated than ever before. Zara entered after announcing herself. Do you feel prepared? She asked, her silver hair elaborately styled for the formal occasion, as prepared as anyone can be for an interspecies diplomatic summit. Beth replied with a nervous smile. I never imagined I'd be representing humanity to aliens. You represent yourself, Zara corrected. But you have become important symbol to both sides. The human who bridges worlds. Beth touched the crystal, drawing comfort from its familiar warmth. I keep thinking about my garden. she said. All those vegetables ripening with no one. To harvest them, it's strange the details that haunt you when everything changes. Zara tilted her head. The small things anchor us to our identity when larger purpose seems overwhelming. She offered her hand. Shall we join the council? The human ship approaches. The meeting would take place aboard a third vessel, one maintained by another spacefaring species, who often served as neutral mediators in the galaxy. Beth learned this was standard protocol for first contact situations, though her case was unusual. The mediators were called the Reen, a species that had achieved interstellar travel millennia, before either humans or Zara's people. The shuttle journey to the Reen vessel was brief, but gave Beth her first view of space from outside. The main ship stars blazed with clarity she had never seen from Earth, their colors vivid without atmospheric distortion. A small fleet of Earth vessels waited near the enormous Reen ship. Human technology, looking primitive but impressive for its development stage. Beth felt pride seeing humanity's achievements alongside alien vessels. We made it to space on our own, she murmured. Despite all our problems, we reached for the star. Zara nodded with something like respect in her expression. Your species advances quickly, sometimes too quickly, without considering consequences. But your determination is remarkable. The Reen greeted them as they docked, tall beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. They spoke through translation devices, their actual language beyond human hearing range. The lead counselor followed diplomatic protocols that Beth could barely follow, too focused on the approaching human delegation. General Morgan led the Earth representatives, her uniform pristine, her posture military perfect. Behind her came scientists, diplomats, and what Beth suspected were intelligence officers, all trying to conceal their awe at the alien environment. Beth stood with Zara and the council as introductions were made, formal greetings exchanged in the careful dance of species meeting for the first time. Officially, Beth studied the human faces, seeing the same emotions she had experienced: fear, wonder, suspicion, curiosity. When formalities concluded, Beth was brought forward. General Morgan assessed her with professional detachment. Are you truly unharmed, Mrs. Milleries, General? Beth replied, standing straight. I was brought aboard their vessel when their mission was compromised. They have treated me with respect and allowed me to learn about their civilization. One of the scientists stepped forward, a woman with kind eyes. Dr. Elena Vasquez, xenobiologist. Have they performed medical examinations on you? Minimal scanning? Beth explained. Nothing invasive. They're as curious about us as we are about them, but they have ethical protocols. A diplomat spoke next, his tone cautious. You understand why we might be concerned. Mrs. Miller, abduction of a citizen even under unusual circumstances is a serious matter. Beth chose her words carefully. I wasn't abducted in the traditional sense. I was given a choice, albeit under difficult circumstances. I chose to warn them about military intervention. That choice had consequences I'm still processing, but I don't consider myself a prisoner. General Morgan frowned slightly. So you don't wish to return to Earth? Beth felt the weight of all eyes, human and alien, upon her. She hesitated, looking at Zara, whose expression remained neutral. I wish to continue learning, but eventually return, yes, with knowledge that will benefit humanity. The human delegation appeared relieved, though still suspicious. The lead counselor stepped forward. We propose cultural exchange program. Human Beth remains with us until arrival at our homeworld, then returns to Earth with delegation of our scientists. Official first contact under controlled conditions.